I'm always excited to have Dr. Aubrey Wallace back on the show. Today we are tackling the subject of emotional hygiene for empaths. That's the umbrella that we're talking under. It does kind of tangent off, as we always do, but Dr. Aubrey has been holding courses on emotional hygiene in various spaces for a number of years. I think this is one of those topics that especially people in working in the healing realms, whether it's metaphysical healing, physical healing, anything like that. Honestly, it's anybody that works around people. You're carrying things home or back throughout your life that might not belong to you, whether it's an emotion, it's a state of mind, state of being. And so today, Dr. Aubrey helps us unpack what emotional hygiene is, how, what are some of the practices that she practices and that she teaches to help people get back into their constitution. But in true form, we tap dance around a lot of different subjects. Somehow we get in quantum physics for a little while, even though neither of us really admittedly know much about quantum physics. But it's these branches that tend to kind of pull us in these different areas that we might not feel ready to be in, or maybe not feel like we have the right to be there, but for whatever reason we're drawn there and we're talking about it. So love Dr. Aubrey. She's one of the most charismatic people that I've met, let alone have on the show. Always love her knowledge and her wisdom. So hope you get something out of the conversation. We'll see you on the other side. Journey of the Modern Soul is a listener-supported podcast. Ways that you can support me in this show that would make me very happy are by sharing an episode with somebody that you think it would impact, by liking or subscribing to the show on whichever platform that you're listening on, or by making a financial contribution. Any donations, if you're called to it, can be made to my Venmo account at Adam-Riehl, ADAM-RIEHL. Links will be in the show notes. Thank you. No matter how much we prepare, the holidays tend to stress us out. So this year, take a moment to reset and recenter with a grounding retreat in Costa Rica. Join Jeff Hawkins, Steve Wimmer, Cameron Nagashima, and myself, Adam Riehl, for a one-week immersive yoga retreat at Blue Osa Resort, backed up to miles of pristine beach. Every day you'll have an option to experience yoga, meditation, relaxation, self-discovery, adventures, or your own personal free time. This is a time to build your peaceful practices before you need them. Take this time for yourself. Visit GarudaWellness.com for details. We have pricing options available, and if you pay in full by July 1st, you receive a 20% discount. Through the experiences offered, there's a lot of different ways to build your practice and approach this retreat. Take time to create space for yourself so you can hold space for others. Reset and recenter. Visit GarudaWellness.com for more information. That's Garuda, Garuda, Wellness, WELLNESS.com. GarudaWellness.com. And now an uninterrupted podcast with Dr. Aubrey Wallace. All right, welcome back to the show. I'm joined by one of my favorite charismatic guests. Dr. Aubrey Wallace is here with me today. If you've been paying attention, Dr. Aubrey has been on many times. We cover many different subjects we never intend to even cover. We just get there and just have fun doing it.
Charisma,
yeah. The Riz of that of Dr. Aubrey Wallace. But one of the things that we've kind of talked about loosely through all of our conversations, and it's like one of those pins we keep putting in and then moving and then putting in and then moving, is emotional and spiritual hygiene.
Yes.
And it's so important, in my opinion, to understand what that phrase means on an individual level, because you're just like your personal hygiene, right?
Yeah.
Yes, shower, brush teeth, right? But our body odor is different depending on who you are, where you're at, what you eat, all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
How active you are. Same with our brushing the teeth, right? Maybe I got mad gingivitis in my lineage, and so I got to floss like a motherfucker, right? Sometimes people could just get the brush and they're good, right?
Yeah.
So the amount of hygiene that you hold and the way you manage that personal hygiene is all up to you, and that's kind of similar to this spiritual hygiene.
Absolutely.
And this is something that I love how passionate you are about this, because you like hold courses on this. Yeah. You're at the Autumn Cara, which is a mutual friend of ours, Miss Hannah Talbot, and this is something that you talk about a lot. And so I think this is so important especially as I'm seeing this big shift in people moving from their let's call it traditional jobs, traditional lives into this more kind of esoteric world, whether they're helping hold space for healing ceremonies. I've got a lot of people that are going through death doula trainings, a lot of this stuff. And this isn't just for people that are in healing realm. This is for if you've never even heard the word energy, understand what a god is, understand what a chakra is, any of that stuff, right? Just because you don't understand those words or use those verbiages doesn't mean it still doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Right. And so just these ideas of what emotional hygiene, how to care for that, how to cleanse yourself, how to be aware of it, I think is a very beneficial thing that we can all embrace as a humanity, not just as people that are, working in the healing realm or spirituality or stuff like that. So, Dr. Wallace, thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Love our conversations.
Me too.
Yeah. So, so this is something that you've held courses on. You actually have one coming up.
Quite a while. Yeah, we have one in August.
Yeah. So what's your kind of like, how do you approach this? Like, what's like that first step? Is it defining terms of what?
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect.
Usually the context of emotional hygiene, I originally produced this for empaths because I had a lot of empaths coming to me trying to figure out how to not be miserable. And so we worked a lot with that, and I just happened to have been born an insane empath. So I kind of got the gift of the many levels of empathy. So usually at the beginning of the course, I try to talk about the difference between just, standard emotions, what emotions are, how they work. And then I talk about empathy, and I talk about how the different levels of empathy work and what how to help discern what's going on in the realm of emotion between what's mine and what's not mine.
Yeah. So levels of empathy, I think, is a really good thing to kind of expand on because
absolutely
there's levels of everything.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And the reason really why I love this topic is because there's also this thing. I don't know if this is the right term for it. It's just something I've heard and I've kind of been using, but I don't think it's the right term. But spontaneous empathy.
Ooh.
And it's again, I don't think it's the right term.
Why?
Well, I think it's always been there for these people that I've spoken to, right? But it's like life finally gave an opening to understand that there's empathy in there. Maybe
Gotcha.
So COVID, I think, was a big impetus for a lot of us, where everything slowed down. The world slowed down, unless you were one of those frontline persons that had to be out there. If you were, what do they used to call them? The
first responders.
First responders, And then you had, if your job was like a grocery store or in a weed shop, if you
essential.
had essential, there you go, thank you. The
You're essential workers.
Then you were still working, but for a lot of us, we got to slow down. Some people got in unemployment. Some people had to manage that whole system and blah, blah, blah. But it's kind of been like after that I've seen people just kind of come to me all questioning and raising their hand and kind of shuffling their feet like, I'm feeling the feels, and I don't know what that means, and I don't know what to do with that because I've never felt feels before. I just nose to the grindstone, put my head down, shuffled the papers, checked the boxes, climbed the ladders, did all the fucking things you're supposed to, and then all of a sudden it's like, I'm sad, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
So I think it's, so maybe, so let's expand maybe on that, the different levels.
Absolutely. So probably, let's see, the best first starting place, because it feels to me as if, honestly, Adam, like we've evolved this a little bit collectively into a little more thinning of the ethers. I don't know what you want to call that, but I think we've always felt as a collective field with each other on different capacity, right? But when it's not in the common way of thinking, it's just not in the common way of thinking.
Right.
Get a little bit of space, and what empathy does, the easiest way to regain your emotional balance as an empath is to go in nature, like get away from other humans or get into a space that feels grounded and centered, right? So being able to take that space over when honestly all the electricity slowed down, all of the crazy in the air calmed down, the earth came up, during COVID, there was a space for everybody to be like, oh, so this is what it feels like to not have a bunch of crazy inside of me all the time.
Right.
Yeah. It's really out there's the crazy, in here's not crazy kind of moment. Yeah. And then going back out into it, really hitting a sense of finally like awareness that's different. The way to maintain hygiene is the same as any hygiene. You have to notice, right? So you have to start by noticing how clean you feel. And with most of us who've felt a lot of empathy all of our lives, we don't think of ourselves as clean. Right?
Right, yeah.
It's kind of a idea of I never don't feel anything. I don't feel clear. I always just feel very emotional and very sensitive and all the things.
Yeah.
But when you start to learn how to do the hygiene and clear those things off, you realize that most people who are very empathic feel kind of empty. They feel a little bit like a space.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that feeling of being clear and empty and clean inside can be a little scary, honestly, for them at first, because it's like I'm nothing. I have a feeling of being nothing.
Wow.
Which is either terrifying,
Yeah.
or thinking it's not going to last, which don't worry, it probably won't last, or Zen, I guess, if you want to go there. That last piece of the nothing, you know, feels really good.
Well, it seems like that mentality kind of goes against a lot of the ways that, at least like when culturally, that I was raised in the 80s and 90s. You know, born in 80, my late 80s through the 90s was my impactful years, I guess, as a teenager, and nostalgia, cultural impact. And growing up in the South, like, we weren't taught to listen to our bodies. We weren't
not
taught
at
to listen
all.
to ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, there was not a focus on, hey, let's explore that feeling that you have going on inside you. It was like, no, fucking smash that down and go back to work.
Zip it up.
Do some things, right? Go out there and run around, be a child, or go like swing a hammer or something, right?
Yeah.
So there wasn't really that opportunity made for the exploration of, why do I feel this way?
Yeah.
You know? And so I think, working with clients that are roughly in my generational age in there,
Yes.
It's really hard to just let them understand that it's okay to feel what's going on inside you, and to put like some context to that. And that maybe as we start to explore what this, maybe a seemingly negative feeling is, we might realize it's not really a negative feeling. We just don't know how to describe it.
Absolutely.
And it's like, given the vocabulary, given the space, almost steel manning somebody into their conversation to help them to the best they can understand like that maybe uneasy feeling that they feel that might turn them into, maybe turn them off into stepping towards it, might be like that curious love that they need to open up all the other emotions that are inside them.
Yes.
It's that vulnerability that you just need to become, courageous enough to step towards.
Yes. When you were talking there, I don't know why, the vision I got was like, life is moving a little faster now, right? And so if we're flowing a little faster and we're all on the river here, and if you're in the sun floating on a log, it's okay to have the feelings come and go and not really care.
Right.
But if you're moving a lot faster down the river, having some sense of your emotion and being aware where you are and keeping yourself in the middle of that stream becomes a little more important.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And especially like noticing the ones that are very significant, like you're talking about. If there's something inside of me that is mine and I need to focus, I want to unpack it, figure it out, or at least know that I'm feeling it and allow myself to feel it and be loving with it, versus, if you have a swarm of mosquitoes on you and you need to notice, those are not me, get them off, because I can't notice what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I think what the basic teachings of empathy, I don't even know. I mean, there are pioneers of this way before me, Judith Orloff and all these other people that have been doing this for years. But the ideas of having like a physical empathy, ability to feel other people's feelings in your body, or feel pain that other people feel sensations that other people feel, that's very different than being able to just feel the emotions of another person. And then you have all sorts of other versions of this, including more spiritual versions of feeling other things that don't really make a lot of sense. So that's the stuff where I feel like I've got to get the basic hygiene in for people so that they understand sitting down long enough with mindfulness to say, this is me, this is what I feel like when I'm good, and this is suddenly not good. what's going on, and I notice and catch it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can work with listening and checking,
Yeah.
just with my discernment
Yeah.
to see if I can come back to the norm on it. I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does, and I found that, just definitely I got my own shit to go through. Like I've
All of
got
us,
things that,
yeah.
totally, right? But I can say like after, conversating with you over the past few years and
Yeah.
just like kind of doing the work in this realm and the different types of people I've spoken to and gotten help from, most of the time it's not my shit that I'm holding on to. And the reason that I'm
Huge
like,
amount of the
man,
time.
holy Christ. Like I could be just like loving life 1 minute and just doing great. And then all of a sudden, like literally walk through a door
Boom.
and just feel like I'm just holding this boulder that's like, where'd this come from?
Yes.
This thing weighs like 4 times as much as me. How am I even holding this right now?
Yes.
And it's like, so like how much of life have I gone through just thinking like all this shit was mine, all
Yeah.
this woe, all this tragedy, all this trauma, and in just not realizing that, hey, okay, how do you put this down? It's not yours. You've just walked into a Fred Meyer. You got smacked by 400 people's energies,
Exactly,
right? And
yeah.
if you have any understanding of what's not going on, then that's going to just diminish you. But if you like one of my friends, Marianne, owner of Bliss, she's working through somatic trainings right now.
Awesome.
And one of the things that she's talking about is, so let's say Fred Meyer. Go into Fred Meyer, and in my head, I go in, my head's down. I know exactly where I'm going. I don't look at
Get my
people.
stuff.
Only thing I look up is the aisle I'm in, and then I'm back to it. I'm out, right?
Yes.
But what she says is, like walk in there, step off to the side, back up against the wall, and just take a moment and look around. Like look up. Look in the rafters.
Yeah.
Look at people's faces. Look at the produce. Look at the fucking, the meat section. Look at the, all the, all the things.
Context. Yeah.
Take it in, right? So then you feel safe.
Yes.
And you don't feel like you need to guard yourself. Like, oh my God, what if I see somebody and somebody has to talk to me? I don't want to talk to people, blah, blah, blah. I'm just going to look at my shoes. I'm glad I wore pretty shoes today. But if you take that moment, and this is what's really helpful to me, it's like, it gives me a sense of not confidence, but just like, okay, I'm ready.
Acceptance.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm ready to move into this space.
Yes.
I'm ready to move through and with this space, and not like I'm invading the space or the space is intrusive to me. It's like this race against time before the space realizes I'm there. It's like I'm in and out like a fucking robbery,
I do. And so much of our, it gets complex, but our beliefs are creating that bubble for us. And so if we have a bunch of experience of pretending like the energetic jungle doesn't exist, all of our childhood, right? I'm feeling all these things, but this isn't real, right? That part's not real. Those feelings aren't real. Those feelings aren't real. Only this feeling is real, right? And then when you start to first wake up to like, well, maybe it's all real. Maybe all those things I'm experiencing have a realness to them. And if that is, what do I do now? And then it's pretty simple, honestly. It's kind of like going into any jungle would be, It's just what are you dealing with right in this moment and what's happening right now? And we don't leave our common sense behind when we walk into an area and suddenly just feel terrible. It wouldn't be common sense to be like, that isn't me. Oh, maybe, I don't know. Common sense would be like, what just happened?
Yeah.
And does it have to do with me? Because I didn't do anything different just 5 seconds ago.
Yeah.
But I changed my environment, or something I don't know, or even staying at I don't know. And what she's talking about, they're so beautiful. You go in, you have expectations of having been smacked in the past, probably. But you can take a moment to get curious, right? Get steady, get still, and get curious again. Or if you want to go nuts, get playful.
Right.
Yeah. What do I want to get? How can I get it? How many people can I connect with on the way there that I feel like would give them some love, right? I'm gonna give 3 people love on my way to my shoes.
Yep.
And got my shoes, they're gonna be right where I want them, and that's gonna be fun for me, right? Or something better, you know.
There's before we hit record, we were talking about the Harvard Happiness Study,
Yes.
the book The Good Life.
Yeah.
And one of the things that after they've been checking in with these folks for 80 plus years, families, friends, and all that stuff now. They challenge them sometimes, especially people that have been in the program for a while. And says, okay, so like you group of 20 people that are part of this program, you're going to go on your daily commute just normal, right? You get in your car, you get on the train, you get on the bus, whatever you do.
Do your do.
Just normal stuff.
Yeah.
These 20 folks, what I want you to do is if you take public transportation, incite a conversation.
Try.
Turn to the
connect.
person next to you,
Yeah.
across from you. Hey, what are you reading? Whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Start a conversation. And as awkward as these folks say that they feel about this challenge,
Yep.
it was over 90% of them reported a positive experience afterwards,
Yeah.
and felt good throughout the rest of their day because they incited a conversation with somebody that was random next to them.
Yes.
And I think there's that good reminder of that. It's like we are afraid. Like it can be kind of scary to say, hey, how are you today? You know, I'll speak as a male, right? As a male, if I just said randomly, hi, woman,
Yes.
recognizing woman, how are you doing? I could be. There's like the Me Too movements now.
So
There's
many
so many
things.
opportunities for people to like take something the wrong way,
Yeah.
or to be maybe offended by something, whether political views, stereotypical view, whatever it is, right?
I do.
And so like I get it. It's hard to like have those connections, but at the same time, like I can tell you how many times I've been in my yoga community and felt like, oh, maybe I shouldn't say hi to this person here.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I've yogaed next to this person now for years, and even if I've never said hi to them, I would hope that over the years that we have created a safe, at least, environment for us to coexist.
Yes.
And so I can say, hey, human being on the bench after we're done with our Shavasana, how are you doing?
Yeah.
And not feel awkward about it. So I think there are opportunities for us to explore what it feels like to say hi to a random person, to interact with somebody else's energies in a safe way without feeling like we're going to offend them or maybe be maybe like an inappropriate type of comment of some sort, right?
Yes. What you're saying reminds me so much of like the literal development of hygiene, right? So we, at the beginning we didn't even wash our hands or whatever, right? And then we decide at some point that there are these evil germs and that we need to take care of them, and then everybody swings the other way, and this worked with COVID too, like masks, gloves, face goggles, and then everything is mental realm down. Like, I'm going to get sick. This is what I have to do to prevent, think. And the other person is still an object, right? And then when we figure out and let go of that level, we start to realize like, oh, things that are clean are like this, things that are not clean are like this. And then that becomes commonplace. And I feel like as we're evolving, that feeling state is always there. We already have it.
Yeah.
We all already know that it'll either feel bad, like I'm uncomfortable, but I'm getting a sense here that it's going to be okay that I'm uncomfortable and this is a little edge I could try to connect through, or we'll have a bad feeling like that person's terrified, or what. There's such a realm there.
Yeah.
And then you can feel also when your own judgments come in front of your eyes, like, I am a male, I am doing this, here are my boxes, and I have to talk to that person in their boxes, right? And our boxes can't intergage, and
Right.
all the things. And if you can slow it down enough to just feel anything, you're usually okay. Like, the hygiene is just awareness and allowing a sense of feeling to be real between two people, I think.
The slowing down, I think, is a big point that I think that we kind of miss a lot. Like, we don't create space for the slowness of life.
Yeah.
It's very fast paced, and so like sometimes we maybe say something that we don't mean. We maybe speak outside of our knowledge context, because we're getting excited about something.
Yes.
And if, in my opinion, like, that's where we start to get into trouble, because our brain and our mind, our brain and our mouth aren't really linking up, and we're saying things. It's like, oh shit. And so, like, I think there is a space for that. Like, we could slow down as a society and hold more space for people to really, like, again, steel man their thoughts. Like, I don't want to hear and to maybe counter a half-assed argument if I don't understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Like the full breadth of what's going on. But if I help you get to the point of clarity where you feel good about what you're saying and I feel good about what I'm hearing, then that's when work can get done, right? But if if we don't slow down enough to really understand what we're saying, then what are we even arguing about? Because I don't even know what the fuck you said.
At all. Like, it's two separate arguments, both on the opposite polarity from each other, that keep spinning.
Yeah.
And it feels bad. I mean, that's the cool part. It feels really bad.
Yeah.
And it'll feel really good bad on one side and really bad on the other
Right,
side.
like a
But
gotcha bad on this side.
We still have the bad, right? Instead of just like kind or like, I don't know, I was walking my dog this morning and this lady came racing her car up the street and I was off the street, but she knew she was going too fast. And at the moment that she was coming by, I had an itch and I like itched my head like this. And I literally reached up and itched my head. And she like slammed her brakes and looked at me like, did you just flip me off?
Oh, shit.
And it was this whole moment of looking at both of us like I could see her filters, her filters were up looking at me like that lady is a Karen and she just flipped me off with her dog, right?
Yep.
And I'm sorry for the Karen phrase, but and then mine is just like, wow, what on earth? And oh my gosh, I might have just flipped her off by scratching my head. I was like, I wasn't thinking that. I was scratching my head, right? But because I was able to look at her with surprise, like, hi, are you okay?
Yeah.
Then she didn't scream at me, right? She just, she caught it and went and kept going.
Ah.
Or I had another woman like come up on me and just start screaming at me on the trail. And I was able to stay, when it isn't personal, it's a different game where you can actually see that person's having a lot of anxiety and something is going on, right?
Yeah.
Then I can say, hi.
Humanize it.
Yeah.
Totally.
And she was even so anxious, she called me a man. Like, she's like, Mister, what are you doing on this trail? And then just, we can filter these fears between each other and all of our mental realm.
Yeah.
I think that empathy is the resolution to that. If we can feel together, we both know what's going on.
Yeah.
We both know something feels slightly off or slightly on or riz.
Yeah.
Right?
You mentioned I want to expand on one thing real quick. It's the hygiene side, and you mentioned like just the hygiene in general, right?
Yeah.
And so there is have you heard of Ingwe Semmelweis?
I haven't.
Okay, so beautiful story about Mr. Semmelweis. Semmelweis was a doctor back in I want to say right at the turn of the century in the 1800s to 1900s. And so Mr. Semmelweis was a doctor and worked around. So doctors back then, they mainly performed a lot of autopsies. They would, birth babies, do surgeries, but hand washing wasn't a thing, right? It was
did a lot of mercury and a couple of leeches. Right?
Yep. So Dr. Semmelweis one day was noticing that when nurses delivered babies, there was almost like a 90% success rate.
Improvement, yeah.
But when doctors delivered babies, there was almost that conversely as far as like sick or dying.
Yeah.
Right? 90% of the babies would die.
Yeah.
And so Mr. Semmelweis was like, well, what's the difference? Oh, these doctors come from
dead people,
corpses, cadavers, straight to delivering babies, whereas nurses, they wash their hands and then they go deliver babies. So Dr. Semmelweis was like, hey,
what if we wash
our hands? Let's just try that out. Let's try that out and see what happens. Before we do germs, bacteria, all this shit. My man was demonized. He not only was fired from being a doctor by the doctors who were like, you're fucking batshit crazy, these little germs.
Don't
what
break
are you talking
our dogma.
About? So they not only fired him, they threw him in an insane asylum, and he ended up dying from sepsis poisoning.
Good Lord.
Dying from the non-washing of hands, basically.
Yes.
And then, now we all know.
Dying right.
Yeah, right. So now we all know, washing hands is a good thing.
Yeah.
And so retroactively, Dr. Semmelweis is now regarded in, there's like, awards after him and blah, blah, blah. After retro.
If we could sink the doctor land,
right?
Yes, that would be our
So I think,
canon.
what really kind of draws me into that conversation and that idea is that like some of this stuff is fucking weird.
Yeah.
Right? Especially when you put the word spiritual in front of hygiene.
Oh, I
right?
would get it as a doctor.
I still have a client that I work with on a regular basis. I've seen this person multiple times now over the years, still thinks that sage is cannabis.
Oh,
and thinks that
isn't.
it's like, make sure you get that strong sage, man. It's like good stuff. And I'm like, we've had this conversation
We have
multiple
some
times
strong
that it's
sage,
not
yeah.
cannabis. And I mean, in
At all.
high doses, small, non-ventilated rooms, adding frankincense and myrrh. Yeah, maybe eating cinnamon so we don't
Be a little
metabolize
altering,
it.
yeah.
A little bit of weirdness, but like, it's not weed. You can just go smoke weed.
Yeah.
Right. So I think there's still a lot of like misunderstandings around like what hygiene, spiritual hygiene means.
Yes.
And like how we can actually do that.
Yeah.
And it's kind of it's intimidating for some people because you put the word spiritual in front of anything and they're like, no, I associate that with religion or some fucking state of mind that I don't believe in or don't think I can reach.
Yeah. Which is why I called the class emotional hygiene, right? And it is spiritual hygiene, but I have found for myself also that if people put it in the realm of emotional, it makes sense to them better.
Okay.
Or maybe that's my doctor hat trying not to get thrown in an insane asylum. That's a possibility. I don't know. They haven't thrown me yet for some reason,
Right,
so we'll see how we do. It's interesting how much that makes me realize I'm probably still hiding a little on it. Because it's hygiene of the field. And the highest level doctors are talking about the field, right?
Yeah.
And quantum physics and all sorts of awesomeness now. So maybe we can collectively come out of our shells together.
Yeah.
There are basic hygiene things, and I think the most interesting thing about what they are is they are very close to indigenous practices or nature practices. So using the elements to clear your field, you use nature to get back to normal, right? You use earth element, so we use crystals, we use grounding. Right? You put your feet in dirt, different things that have been done for a while. You can use air element, so you're using incense, right? Or you can use air element through imagining the winds coming and blowing things across and out of your field.
Right.
You can invite, water is the essence of hygiene.
I love,
in all ways. Yeah. So actual water is incredible for empathy of all sorts. Get in the shower. Whatever you have accumulated at Fred Meyer can usually be washed off in the shower, right? Or in an Epsom salt bath, or those things, places where you can let go into the water. And fire, sage.
Now with grounding, there's that seems to be a buzzword now, like grounding.
Oh, I'm sure.
There's like and so it just in your personal opinion, if you've ever utilized any of these products, like there's like the grounding rod
mat.
technology, grounding mats. There's like grounding blankets. You can run literally a grounding rod out your window into the ground, and that's cooked up to your blanket that you put
under
on
your mattress.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, have you ever utilized any of those products? Or
I have.
Okay.
I've used them before. The literal ability to connect into the earth has been helpful for many of my clients and patients, especially if they're sitting at their computer all day and they're just out of the zone entirely. Do I feel that I would prefer for them to go out into nature? Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think those are... I have had some clients and patients that are so high-strung with their electric, it's like they can't find their bodies. Those do well with grounding mats. Often in my experience, just brings them at least, copper to the ground. Something. Or sometimes just basic things to ground make a big difference. I've had that, yes.
Do you think
that was a question?
Do you think the intention, like what you were saying with that stuff, it's like maybe like the grounding, like I'm wearing like a grounding ring or like a ground, like something like that, like something that could be a gimmick, right?
Absolutely.
But do you think that just the fact of like you're trying, just the mentality of like, hey, I'm doing something, I'm going to take this grounding ring, I'm going to put it on my finger, and whether it physically works or not, whether it's pseudoscience and it just works in my head, it's still an action that's producing a result.
Absolutely.
Right? And so do you feel like there's a benefit in that in general?
Ooh, there's a conversation for me. So before we knew there were germs and we're washing them off of our corpses and onto our babies, this to me is how an understanding of how imagination works, of how intention works. These energetic things to me have been real the whole time. So it's just imagination is an interesting concept if you start to understand that imagination with intention is manifesting, yeah. Or is creating a reality. Or the fact that no matter where you are on this planet, she's under you, right?
Oh, that's a good
You're
point.
good to go.
Yeah.
You're not flying off. So you're already grounded on some level. Maybe it isn't that. Maybe it's just that you're getting out of your own way by imagining it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have lots of opinions. And
Yeah.
grounding is interesting for a lot of people. It's been something that's been very hard for me personally my whole life. And I grew up in nature with no electricity.
Okay.
And so wasn't hard for me growing up. I lived on the land. And so moving out and away from that across my whole life has been very challenging for me to get to that same level of ground that I am used to being there. So I think for me it's been a personal, I don't know, obstacle so that maybe I can teach to others.
But I think you mentioned something earlier about feeling.
Yeah.
And I think that's, there's so much in that idea of what the feeling that we're looking for. And I can say, like, as a youth, I was told, in a roundabout way not to feel, right?
Yeah.
Because in
or
a way,
not a roundabout way sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, well, look at the DARE program.
That's just feelings. That's just your imagination.
Well, we grew up in the DARE era,
Oh, yeah.
and basically it was like, like if you're looking for something outside of, like you're chasing a high, basically, right? And so, it's always been this thing that's been like kind of like this negative connotation around it about the feelings. Yeah. But what I found is that there's so many people that are looking for the answer. Yeah. Right, like these influencers that are popular now, or the authors that we listen to, like a Deepak Chopra or a Pema Chandran or something like that, where it's like these people have got it, they figured it out in their own way. Eckhart Tolle's, right?
Oh my gosh!
But you're not Eckhart Tolle, you're not Pema Chandran, right? So it's like you can't just follow their path and say, okay, now Eckhart did this, and then he did that, and then he did here, and then he went that, and then you can't just follow that lineage and get the same results because you're a different human. So what I found is like, there's definitely going to be crossover in modalities, ideologies, things like that will work. But if you know the feeling that you're either looking for or that you've experienced, that feeling will draw you back to it. Right?
Amen.
And it's like, just like you're talking about grounding, growing up in that way, you've probably been like, that was the emphasis like of grounding, like you grew up on the ground, with the world, with the nature, and then you removed yourself to become part of society.
I understood what it was not like.
Right? Yeah. So it's like this idea, like that's so intimate, that feeling that you have, what grounding feels like, because you were birthed into that.
Yeah.
So it's like, instead of what do I need to do to get that? I'm going to ground my feet. I'm going to get my grounding mat. I'm going to wear this ring. I'm going to eat some fucking blah, 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 right? Eat some chocolate. No, it's like, okay, so like I have all these things that I can do, but it's the feeling that I'm looking for. It's not necessarily the process that gets me to that. It's the feeling that once I feel that, got it.
That's how you know you got it, right? I think.
Yeah.
And I have hygiene is extremely simple to me. And I wish it was like a 10-step plan.
I know, right?
Maybe I don't wish that.
Yeah.
But the hardest part about it is just accepting what's happening. Like, I notice, I allow, right, this is happening. And then I unpack a little, like, what's happening? Where is it happening? If I can do it curiously. Oh, what is this? What's this feeling? I define it a little. And then most of the time, since I'm an empath, crazy, I ask, is it mine? And see if it goes away. Yeah. But the information of what's happening is all in the feeling, no matter what it is. It's there.
Yeah.
So I think it would have made sense to say, there are no germs, we're not having germs, right? And now it's like, oh, maybe there are germs. And now it's like, oh, God, look at the germs.
They're everywhere.
Like, what are we doing? Yeah. And the feeling stuff, that same kind of thing. But a bacteria is not a virus. And we know that now. And we're like, okay, you do this for bacteria, you do this for viruses. Or, I don't know if we know all about the microbiome yet. Don't get me started too far in. Having conversations with fungi sometimes. Yeah. And all sorts of strangeness. But the same thing with emotions. It's all there. It's already there. It's all in. The information is all there in the feeling. We have this idea that there's so much more we don't know that's dangerous. If you were able to look back on it as we have been completely protected by our own microbiome the entire time without even knowing that existed, right? If you go there, there's so much going on that you have no control of at any time. And yet, magically, you're good.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Well, I don't know if it's magical, but it feels magical if you look at it that way. COVID could have been a lot worse.
Right, yeah.
And it wasn't great. It was pretty rough, and it may still be fun coming. But there's a lot of health promoting something or other. So if you want to go into the unknown, go both ways.
Yeah. Right, yeah.
Yeah, look at what you focus on. We can talk about central pattern generators if you want to go insanity.
Let's do it.
I mean, your autonomic nervous system, there's an idea that you have 3 primary generators that we evolve into. One's in the gut, one's in the heart area, one's in the head, right? And they run us. So 60 to 70% of all of our sensory inputs coming through that gut central pattern generator, feeding and directing our brain.
Yeah.
But we think we have it all figured out, right? Or you could go into psychology, call it the unconscious part of us. There are a lot of nebulae.
Yeah, right, exactly.
to play with.
And it's like, with that idea, what's next?
Ooh.
Like 10 years, 15, 20 years from now. Like, what are we going to figure out that we had no fucking idea? Like, we figured this is the way viruses are. And now we're just like, oh, man, viruses are actually really good for us. Holy shit, they evolve. They're part of the evolutionary process, right? It's like we barely know, but we hang our hats so strongly on what we quote-unquote know.
That's very 2-year-old of us. Do you know? It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's nice development.
Yeah. I think, and that I had a boss a while ago, my first professional mentor.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he just would never let up on humanizing himself to every single person that was on his team. Yeah. Yes, he was the boss. He was the guy. He was the GM. He was
doesn't mean he doesn't play his role.
Exactly. Yeah. Horizontal linear management. And so it's that acknowledging your ignorance. Yeah. And not just to acknowledge the fact you don't know, but then to take it another step further and say, let's find out together.
Yes. Right. Because first, stand on what you know.
Yes. Right.
Then let it go and realize there's so much more. Yeah.
When you can bring it from that perception again, like he was my mentor, still is my mentor, and so I would look at this guy Jeff and be like, Jeff knows everything, and then if Jeff would be like, no, hey, guess what?
Jeff knows he doesn't know.
and but everything. We both don't know, so why don't we learn together?
Yes.
And then that's just this humanistic side, right? I get to see Jeff as a human being, henpecking on the keyboard, trying to Google some things that was too early before he knows how to type, right? Yes. And it's like I see him as a human being. I'm like, oh, I can say that. Oh, my mom or my dad used to do that, and it's like, oh, that's a humanizing characteristic. That's cool. So now we take these people that we pedestalize for whatever reason, and then we bring them back down here where we all should be anyways. We're all level, You might have a little bit more knowledge in this than I have in that, but my knowledge in this is going to make up for your lack of that, and it's like that's that symbiotic mycelium kind of relationship that we all have.
And personally, I think that's the only way we're going to evolve at this point.
Yeah. Because
even on the cellular level, we have to kind of find our similar ones, and then we have to have diversity in order for it to go.
Yeah.
So, and if we're going to, I don't know, one of my colleagues talks about it as being at the hearth, right? You've got to bring people to the hearth. And this is... indigenous people brought themselves to the fire so that everyone sitting at the fire could look behind whoever was there to protect them against what was coming from the outside.
Wow.
So you are protected by the person farthest away from you, right? Wow. On the circle. So we need a circle. We need diversity. Yeah. And we need the circle of diversity to be able to see what we don't see see what we can't see.
Man, that's the shit I'm talking about. Like, you know how I've been looking at circles for 43 years. 44 years. Been trying to put squares in circles and triangles in circles as a child, and stood in many circles, right?
Geometry.
Yeah, we can. Oh, yeah.
Lots of
One of my favorite videos to watch on Instagram is there's this woman. She's probably acting, but there's like this one of those puzzles, right, that we have as a kid, and you have all like the arc and the square and the octagon.
Hard.
And they're just like, pull it up, and they're like, oh, where does this arc go? And the person's like, in the arc, and they're like, in the circle. And then they're like, oh, and she's like, no, not the circle. It's like, well, where's the square go? Well, this square goes in the circle hole. And they're like, what are you doing? Just because it fits her doesn't mean it goes there. Just to watch this little human lose her shit. It brings me a lot of joy. Not sure why.
Because we were raised with the ones that only the triangle goes in the triangle, only the square goes in the square. Yes.
And it's funny because, like, actually, as you say that, there's a phrase that I've been working really, really hard on myself recently, and it's the phrase and the idea of in trouble. You're in trouble, right?
Interesting.
Who am I in trouble with?
Yes.
I'm an adult now. Who
I'm
can I be in trouble? Right?
Yeah.
And it's one of those triggering phrases to me that, growing up as, what I now consider myself as a, ritualistic nice person. I didn't, I was just always, like, hey, yeah, of course. Yeah, I'll figure it out. The yes man.
Yes, I do.
It's like the nice guy.
Yeah.
And then eventually it's like, well, that doesn't work anymore, But it's utilizing that as a superpower now instead of this bad thing, right? So I think there's a lot of those opportunities for us to look at some of the things that we may have embraced as throughout our years. As we find out that maybe that's part of our routine, we can see the benefit of what that is instead of living in the victimhood of what is perceived as that thing. Because that victimhood thing is, I think it's I don't want to say it's easy for us to get there, but it's kind of comfortable to be there sometimes because people are taking care of you. You're being sheltered. You're being nourished in some kind of way.
Ooh,
but
it's going on this. You want me to get?
Yeah, let's go. No, seriously, because I think it's a scary place to be in.
The book I like the most is called Fierce Intimacy on this. Terrence. Oh, is it Terrence Mann? Sorry, I can't remember his last name. But it's called Fierce Intimacy, and it's about self-esteem. And the biggest thing that he talks about, and he does couples therapy, is that self-esteem we've been allowed to define it over a few criteria, essentially. You have some people that have self-esteem because of what they produce, their productivity. You have some people from material, and you have some people that have evidence of being connected and loved by someone else. And all of those are still in the mental realm of self-esteem. I think this is actually very relevant to the whole conversation about emotional empathy, because I think as you go into empathy, you're going to understand that the majority of what's happening is the system you're in. And the same thing happens with this self-esteem bit, right? If you're in a restricted system that's defining you as not worthy, and in order to make sure that you have generative, creative potential towards some other goal, then you have a choice. You get a choice in your not worthiness. You can either be fixing the people who are in trouble, or you can be one of the people in trouble, and you only get two categories, right? Yeah. So either you are worthy, which isn't really happening. Like, I'm worthy enough to just connect with you and say hi. And it has nothing to do with any of your value, what you're doing and not doing. Yeah. Right? Or we have to try to hierarchy this some way. So you get to pick, and Adam, you got to pick, I'm going to be the helper, right? I'm going to be the person who takes care of people, or I'm going to be the piece of crap, which I don't know. I assumed you picked the happy end, sometimes the crap. We all do.
Yeah.
Right?
There's a balance between the two.
Sometimes it's really, there's benefit to being in trouble, because it's like, the benefit is, screw it. Like, I'm not worthy, and I don't have to be. I don't have to try to be, and I'll just accept this suckiness and the shame and the guilt, right? Yeah. And then the other end is like, no matter what, I can't ever stop, because if I stop at any moment, I'll slide into that other thing, and I don't want to be that other thing. And this one's a little harder to let go of, I think. Yeah. Wow. I don't know. I can't imagine this one's easy to have either. Yeah. Both are crap, right? What empathy would do is notice that they both feel like crap. This one feels like kind of good, twisted, happy crap, and this one feels like bad, bad, bad crap.
Yeah.
You know, there's the same dynamic there. With empathy, when you're feeling other people's stuff as trouble, like, ooh, take a group of, just take you. Go into the feeling of when you got in trouble when you're little, right? You go in and you're in trouble. And then there's kind of a sick, sweet, bad. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of exciting, and it's also kind of terrifying.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's really awful. And everyone knows we're playing a stupid, awful, terrifying game, including everyone, right? So at what point, if we were to do that, just to walk into a room and just go, this game sucks. Like, this is not a good game.
Yeah.
I mean, it does give us a lot of dopamine hits, and also a lot of crying, you know, and don't worry, we'll come back to balance and still love each other at the end.
Right.
But could we play something else?
Yeah.
Like, what if we played something else, anything else?
Yeah.
I don't know if that even that sense.
Well, it kind of reminds me of what you said earlier about slowing down. It's like if we slow down in life, you know, because life can be triggering, right? And we walk let's say we walk into a situation we weren't ready to see. Like I come home and my kids haven't cleaned the house yet or, you know, put the dishes away or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I walk in and I'm triggered by that. And I'm like, okay, here's my reaction. You guys are in trouble. You didn't do what I asked. You said you would. And now I'm wagging my finger and I've used that phrase, in trouble, right?
Yes.
But if I could slow down when I walk in the door and just, okay, so now open the door. I'm triggered by what I see. You know, things aren't done. But why aren't they done? I've jumped to a conclusion that they're fucking off doing nothing. And they just disrespected me, right? Yeah, right? But they might also be like, shit, my dog rolled around in a pile of shit, and now we had to spontaneously give her a bath, and it takes both of us because she's a hairy son of a bitch. So now we're both in the bathroom, covered in soap and shit, trying to clean the dog, and that's why things didn't get done.
Dishes weren't the priority.
Right. You know, so instead of me going in screaming and what the fuck is this? This is bullshit. The house looks like crap. Not even paying attention to the fact the kids weren't even there. There's no dog. Where's everybody at? I'm just upset. You know, we take that breath, we take in the information around us, get a little bit of an understanding of our emotional hygiene, maybe what we're carrying in from work, from our outside life, from the traffic I just sat in for 2 hours, and the person that just cut me off, and nothing my kids have any control over whatsoever.
The sheer amount of pressure and attention that's being pulled and siphoned off right now on everyone all the time.
Right.
Right? Do you know how good it feels to just do the dishes and be done with the dishes?
Yeah.
Like, I actually found myself, like, wanting to do dishes because it's simple and it's done.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's so little that we're getting right now that feels like that, right? And so if you're getting these in trouble hits all day, ding, 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 and they all feel like that, you never get to that feeling of the dishes.
Right.
You're not even there when you're doing the dishes or not doing the dishes. I think it's gotten more intense, pressure, attention, collective. You have, having been raised off the grid, there's a lot of boredom. Like, there's a lot of time where you don't do anything.
Right.
And kids nowadays probably lose their mind just a tiny bit, right? But the dishes become interesting.
That's a great point.
I don't know. There's something going on with the social stress and the attention.
Yeah.
That isn't working.
Yeah. There's a podcast I listen to called Big Brain. Actually, the episode I listened to on the way in today, they were talking about the dangers of multitasking.
Yeah.
And how much it takes for our attention to regain once we've taken it from something.
Yeah.
And that could be going from, like, our phone, right? So just because my phone's in front of me doesn't mean that because I switch between my email, my text message, my social media, my PowerPoint presentation, my notes for tomorrow's meeting, all those things, just because I'm on the same device, that doesn't mean my brain isn't struggling to go from my email and now to open my Facebook and now to open my, social media, whatever it is, right? Yeah. Everything takes energy, and it's so much energy that we're finding because so one of the studies that they cited is that like we as a society are working considerably less than we've ever worked as far as hours per week. And the idea, one of the ideas that they trace with this study is that the concept that things were simpler, the simpler times, right? And what they're showing is that there's not simpler times. Like we've progressed so much more as far as a society. We're not working as much. We're safer, whether you can believe that or not. We're safer as a world population. We have more opportunities for inequality. People that maybe fall under that umbrella of inequality to now have some standards, some standings, right, and some voices. But we're still fucking exhausted, and we're still reporting that we're not happy. We're still reporting on all this stuff. And so the diving deeper into it is the ability or our inability to move between tasks seamlessly like we think we can. And so multitasking, the thing that has to be the number one question on every fucking interviewer's list since 1987, what's your multitasking abilities? Are you comfortable with doing it?
Can you do it? Yeah.
No, not at all. And I'm fucking proud of that shit, man. I used to love multitasking. I could do 10 things at once. I got all the plates spinning. And I give me some more. I'm going to fucking spin some more on my head and on my toes and shit. And now it's like, if you ask me to do something while I'm already doing something, I will give you the shittiest fucking look because I have zero desire to try to do something when I'm already doing something now. And it's like, but if I ever went back into a traditional job, that would be probably one of the biggest hurdles for me to get past is the multitasking because I have no desire to do that because I see how much it just pulls away from our attention span.
It's been an interesting, just personal kind of journey in my career right now where I feel like, I kind of hit the top of things and I'm looking at the value of my time and the value of money and the value of just value. And if I go in, to me, I think across all systems, your attention is it. It's the most valuable thing you have. It's you, not as a resource, right? But as an unlimited being. And then where you pointed, pointing your awareness is beyond anything else. And it's so siphoned right now.
Yeah. And
it's siphoned in a way that's so effortless.
It does seem effortless. It just like everything around I hate to say, like, I don't think it's nefarious because I don't think there's like some evil puppet master, like marionetting all the fucking world and all this shit. But at certain times I'm like, this feels like too coincidental to not be like an intentional influence at times. I don't know. It seems weird.
Every growth edge is that, right?
Yeah.
When we go to the other extreme. So here we are. I don't think technology and innovation is a bad idea, personally.
Right, yeah.
I actually don't know that we are. I'm hoping, well, I'll be quiet. But I think as we've made this space for ourselves and we've continued to work on the values of like greed and some things that don't work super well for us collectively, and trying to extract and be this system of extraction and extraction and extraction as if things are a finite resource, I think we'll run out. I mean, we got to get tired of it. At least for me, I don't know about anyone else, but it took me hitting that point of like, my attention's gone. Like, what now?
Right.
And then I'm like, whoa, my value is actually just me.
Yeah.
And my attention I can bring to this. And my connection I can bring to this.
Yeah. That's like one of the most important commodities that we have is our intention. Or our attention, right?
It's the individualness of us, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like our lens of God.
Yeah.
I don't know the right God is the right word, but
well, it's the idea of, right? It's like, there's you talked about technology and like maybe alluding to like cell phones and things like that just a minute ago. And one of the things that I really kind of hold hope for and I like, there's a thought experiment I go over in my head a bit with this idea, but it's like, it seems like we got to play with these new toys and break the shit out of them before we realize the full potential of them, right? It's like, cell phones, looking at, social media and adult entertainment, or, texting fucking, idiots in
All
different
of it in
countries
there.
about
Break
just
it
arguing
open.
stupid shit,
Yeah.
it's like, but, okay, so the thought experiment that I have, that I go over, and I use this for a lot of different things, but, and I don't know the factualness of this. I'm not an archaeologist, I don't know anthropology, all this shit. But again, thought experiment.
Yes.
So you have a couple Neanderthals back in
Starting
the
with
day.
Neanderthals.
Yeah,
Yes,
we're going back
all
in
right,
the day,
all
right? And walking through the woods, all of a sudden lightning strikes a tree. The tree catches on fire. They're like, "Oh, wow, that's fucking interesting. We've never seen that before. Let's go touch it. Touch it. Hey, don't touch it. That sucks,
Yeah.
right?" But if you get close enough to it, it's kind of warm, and it's a chilly night. I guess we'll invent the word warm. That feels good,
That
right?
works.
All right.
Yeah, we got words.
Cool. So let's grab the stick that's the part that's not burning. We'll take it back to the cave, and on the way there, it's like, hey, it's kind of dark, but we can see. That's
Weird.
cool. Love that. Hey, there's a lion over there. Wave this fiery thing. Oh, we invent another word.
Even
fire.
better.
Okay, there you
Yeah.
go. Hey, it's scared of that. Cool. Okay, we've got many uses of this. We can get close to it. We can warm ourselves. We can see behind dark things, and it scares our predators away. Cool.
Yes.
Done. All right, we figured this thing out. Hundreds of years. Just fucking lighting up the place, keeping people warm, scaring off bad things.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, the little pet saber-tooth tiger rolling around the cave, trips, falls, and lands in the fire, dies. And they're like, well, we can't waste that, so let's eat it, right?
And then we cook.
And then it's like, this whole time, you can cook this shit? You can make this thing not like fleshy and like gooey and like it tastes good, and then proteins make the brain work differently and blah 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 blah, right? And so it's like, how many centuries did the Neanderthals just like kind of kick it with fire, just doing what they did until they realized could cook with it? So we realized that we could, as human beings, as evolving human beings, good, bad, or indifferent. Now we can put that motherfucker in a gun and make a flamethrower. And I can shoot fire now, right?
Yes.
So not the best use of fire, in my opinion, but hey,
Well,
it's
we
like
got better.
we keep
at
finding
that
these
theme.
ways,
Yes.
So it's like, I think that gives me hope in the understanding of like, like cell phones, technology, satellites, GPS, all this shit that we're just like, we're very humanistic in this like kind of archaic in the way we approach these things, but they're letting us expand the base and maybe get used to the technology as we can get used to the way it integrates with us.
Yes.
And then we can see the full potential and the expansion of it.
And there's a language for it and some context. And I mean, the internet changed everything around what we were, information is God. Mm-hmm. And then now it's completely available to anyone at any time, and it's completely useless. Almost.
Right. It is.
Like it's almost useless, but also not useless.
Yeah.
And I feel like the same. I don't know. I've been, if the way that I do medical intuitive readings is to be able to tap into this inner space where I can just read information off of anyone's field with their permission and give them information on that how different is that from the internet? But I don't have any explanation for them 10 years ago other than I'm just weird. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. It's a non-locality, right? But if I have understanding of how information is non-local through the technologies we're building out to look at these things, we wouldn't even need them then. We just move past them, right? Mm-hmm. I feel like that's just a stepping stone on technology.
Yeah.
But we build it very much like the structure we're in.
The way you're explaining that is kind of the way I'm understanding quantum technology is going.
Ooh, get me started on quantum.
Where
Watch
it kind
out.
of takes the middleman out of it, and it's just like
kind of takes the middleman as the whole point.
Right? Well, that's a good way to think about it. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's
when
that
we're quantum.
The device. The devices are starting to remove, and it's more of like the connection between the fields, right?
Well, yes. If we're in a quantum field, that means that every single individual perspective of us has the equal amount of power in the field, right? And then when we come into coherence, oh my.
Yeah.
What is this third thing that's a potential or here or here or here? Quantum has been lots of fun for me to start playing with. just the idea. I don't know. I can't do quantum coherence. I'm not a quantum physicist. It's pretty funny, actually. I accidentally searched this quantum article, and so they've been sending me like all of these papers by A. Wallace. And they're like, "Are you this quantum physicist? Are you this quantum?" So I've gotten like 20 papers from these like highly academic, and I'm reading through these papers and just having a ball.
Yeah.
Because I have no idea what they mean, but they have all this languaging about like the marriage and monogamy of the quantum coherence.
Interesting.
And yeah.
Wow.
We're getting closer and closer on the idea of this. And we have computers that do quantum dots, right? We have quantum coherent computers already.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
So we're already moving into that next level of understanding, I think. Yeah.
I keep reading things like that, even though I barely understand anything. Like maybe a percentage of a percentage I'll understand.
You are.
But I had this idea that like, So I love this quote. Vocabulary, words are the poet's biggest nemesis, right? Because like I can look at that plant right there and be like, man, that's fucking dope plant. Like I can appreciate it for what it is. But if I tried to explain to you how much I love that plant, it might take volumes of pages, right?
Oh yeah.
And so like with that idea, I don't even know the vocabulary I don't know. I don't need to know, right? And quantum is a field and a realm that like quirks and quasars and
Q
fucking
dots.
The things, all
Qubits.
these things, and I'm like, it sounds cute, but it also like it just I just don't know the words, and so I just keep reading these books, these papers, these essays, all this stuff with the hopes that I'm building a vocabulary base so that it's like I don't understand the owner's manual, but if I read it enough, maybe intuitively it'll just kind of it'll get a sense for it.
Which is funny because it's the owner's manual of you, so something, and you probably will get a sense of it.
That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping. Yeah, those 47-letter words are going to make sense one of these days. I'm like, yes, I know what a fucking quark non-blunner, mana is. And I'm like, I can't even say the words,
I kind of think we'll get all the way there. And I had a lady years ago that was like, quantum isn't what they think it is, Aubrey. And I'm like, what is it? And she's like, it's not that it has a probability of showing up along the electron line. She's like, it's because it chose to say hi right then. Like, we're going to get to the realization that it's relating to us. And that part, it does seem like with the way quantum works, the one thing it's teaching is interdependence.
Right.
And that is where I think we want to be. Coming into an ocean maybe, where we're all floating here with a complete ability to create reality. What happens when you bump those two?
Right.
Yeah, what happens when you bump these 10?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like that idea that everybody's unique but nobody's special. Like we all serve that purpose. We're all out there.
Or we are all at unique special points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way to think about it.
It's paradox.
Man.
Yeah.
And it's just, I love the smaller that we start to look, the more it seems like we're not supposed to be there. It's like, the observer effect, the double slit experiment is one of the famous ones in quantum physics.
Yes, absolutely.
Where they'll shoot individual protons through two slits, and it's supposed to be like, hey, okay, there's one there, there's one there, there's one there, with one there, right? Yeah. And then all of a sudden they're like, cool, now we're going to go to lunch. And they walk away, go to lunch, and they come back, and it's in a wave pattern. And it's like, what the fuck is this? No, that's not supposed to happen. And then they run it again while they're watching, and they're like, dot there, dot there, dot there, dot there. And then they're like, okay, what's different? We didn't watch it, so now let's step away, and then here's that wave again.
Probability.
And it's like that. It's that idea, like
we impact it.
You're right. It's like, oh my God, you're looking at me. Now I should be a chair. Look at me, I'm a chair. Oh my God, look at me, I'm the best chair in the world. Right?
I'm a 50% chair. Equal 50% chair.
So it's like, who's watching me? That's forcing me to now be Adam.
But yes, and no matter what, on a feeling level, there's only you.
Yeah.
Right? I would recognize you if I was blind and I couldn't smell, right? If I could just feel you, you are Adam.
Yeah.
And only you.
Yeah.
And that is the point of empathy to me, a little bit. We all have a completely different us.
Yeah.
That is only us. Yeah. That's the thing I try to target with my intuition, I think, when I'm working with people. Yeah. It's just like, where's the essence? Bing! And it's so beautiful. And it's so hard to describe, like your plant. So that's why I draw pictures and try to point at them. But there's a sense of beauty, specific beauty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like your own version of synesthesia.
Tell me that. What does that mean to you?
So synesthesia. So I've always recognized synesthesia in my own self when I do medicine journeys or sound healing.
Yes.
I'll see color, I'll smell colors, or like I'll hear a sound and it associates with the color or something like that, right? But I listened to this person recently talking about their born with synesthesia, and they've created their own numeric system based off of colors and shapes.
Cool.
And it makes complete sense to this person, and I'm like, that's amazing to me that this is the way that that's manifesting in your brain,
like an artist.
Oh, it's so fucking cool,
or a scientist.
But it's like it's those examples to me that like we've like the numeric system, right? 1 through 10, right? 0 through 9. Be agreed upon numbers, agreed upon by whomever, whatever, wherever, right?
Yes.
But then there's these versions of people out there that don't see that, but what they've developed within their own intuition and their own knowing inside themselves is so like, it seems to make so much sense to that person.
Yes.
That how can all of this make sense to these many people, but be so foreign and so like just even a starting point. Like this person didn't even use what we would consider number shapes in their numeric system. That fucking makes, I don't know. It's so crazy to me to think about this stuff and to just like hang our hats on. This is the way humans are. This is the way that humanity is. This is the way we think. This is the way we experience life. This is the way we emote. This is the way we... No, it's not. And we need to stop fucking feeding that lie to people because, like, you're such a unique person. I'm such a unique person that, there's a book I read recently called The End of Averages. And one of the points they make is, like, if you take 1,000 people's brain scan them together and say, okay, so now we think here, we see colors here, we smell stuff there, and emote here. But then you extrapolate, say, Dr. Aubrey is one of those 1,000 people. Okay, so we're going to take Dr. Aubrey's brain scan out and mash it against the average. Well, okay, so the front right lobe is where we say that people smell things. But in Dr. Aubrey's, it's the back left lobe.
Oops.
Oh, that's weird. Okay, your front, your blah, blah, blah. Everything is different. And that's what they're finding is like people don't actually match up to an average when you're individually graded against that average. So why are we using that stuff?
I like the metaphor of if you put us all into a collective body, right? Mm-hmm. Like the neurons don't look anything like liver cells at all. They wouldn't even look like they belong in the same world.
Right.
Yeah. So what is our commonality? Yeah. I guess they're both cellular. They both have walls and breathe. I mean, it's pretty. We got some similars. We got similar number limbs and stuff.
Right.
Yeah. But otherwise, maybe we just keep seeing the bigger picture.
Yeah. With 8
or there
billion
is,
people
patterns in the picture.
I think that's a really good point to make. There, because there is that pattern-esque,
Yes,
and not to
is.
say like there's going to be another person with the same pattern as you, but there's like, maybe my emotional pattern that I personally have might be related to an emotional pattern of people born in, Geminis or, some kind of weird shit. There's so many different ways, like human design and all these different qualifiers for looking at the humanness, So maybe it's a pattern of things that just repeats differently in different ways.
A lot of people think it might be, I don't know, frequency, music, and light. Yes, but I'm curious too how empathy works there. Because what if I can feel your patterns? That's all I ever do with anyone ever, right? I just kind of feel their patterns.
Right.
Yeah. So now I get to get an experience of liver cells and an experience of neurons and an experience of mitochondria, an experience of, and then all of these things integrating. What a beautiful, beautiful dance.
Man,
if we all do it a little bit more.
Yeah. Do you ever... I didn't get this sense, and I sat in the darkness in the beginning of the year in March for 5 days.
Wow, beautiful.
And, it was great. It was a cool experience, but...
Intense, I imagine.
I've kind of wrestled with this idea since then. It's like, maybe I don't understand my senses, and sometimes maybe I'm too reliant on my obvious senses, like tangibly touch, physically see, audibly hear, taste, all this stuff. And there's so many cool things that can happen with those five senses, whether they're
Yes.
working at full bore, you got a couple, some, whatever's going on with your combination of senses. But, to our point, your point you made earlier about, feeling into the heart and, the gut biome and moving up to the brain and stuff. It's like, it's almost like I'm relying too much on the obvious and not understanding the depth of the nuances. And, and we're in a world that's so stimulated by what we see, what we smell, what we taste, what we hear, music, food, all this stuff.
The sensory world.
Right. Is there a way that, like, we could, there is meditation, there's all these practices, but it's so hard in this stimulating place that we're in.
Attention.
To really like dial into like what you're actually, like that deeper sense of self, that deeper sense of feeling, that just because I can't touch, smell, taste, it doesn't mean it's not real, I don't know if I'm saying it right, but it's kind of just feels weird that, like,
you noticed you went to your in. I call it my in and my out, right? And my in world is a whole nother world.
Right.
And my out, I don't know the tribe, but it's in Peru maybe? I think it's South America, and all I can think is Shipibo, but that's probably not right.
Oh, the Shipibo?
Yes.
Yeah.
Where they raise their children indoors until like age 11. They don't go outside.
Huh.
They stay inside until that age. And then they're allowed to develop fully the internal knowing before they move out into that bigger sphere. I think it's Shipibo, but
I've heard of that. Yeah, and I think that might be from from my remembrance of hearing about that. There's also a layer of training for shamanic, shamanic
absolutely.
training,
That's the tribe,
Once they emerge after that, that period of being in the dark in the cave, it's like that's when you start your medicine journeys too.
Yes,
right. You come out and you start to dial into
the outside world. Yeah, there's a thought.
What a fucking trip.
So, what an interesting thing to have you completely go into the internal now and shut the whole outside off and then come back in. I don't know, we have so many, what are they, of the world mystics, what are they called? Householder mystics now, because we have to do this in motion, right?
Right.
And so there's a sense there of just taking a minute to go in versus out for me, and see if just changing the in. Now let's take it into neuro instead might be a little bit more useful, right? Because we have what is in our environment that we're sensory perceiving,
right,
and then we have what we project as our perception, and then we have our interpretation of the difference between those.
Wow, yeah.
That's how we work in our brain.
Yeah.
So we always have our in projected out, and we always have our sensory coming in, and we have the interface of us defining, discerning, boxing it up and putting it in our little things. Yeah.
And that's, to me, when you're mentioning that, it takes it from a lot of our external senses into more of the internal senses that may not be talked about, like our common sense, our sense of self, our
intuitive senses.
Yeah, our sense of humor, and these things that we internally develop as a sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, they even talk about pain working that way. Like, we thought it was all these things, and we had all these theories of pain gating and all these other things, and then they're like, actually, it seems to be some kind of like almost holographic template of an idea we have of ourselves and how we interpret pain that actually shows our pain. Huh. So I don't even know what and it has some ancestral basis, which is interesting. So with empathy, then what are we doing there?
Yeah.
Right? So this is maybe my sensory part is stronger from my out to my in, or my perception isn't strong enough to push me out. Like, I'm not even sure.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting interface at that edge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
So I guess hygiene might be to discern the edge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay, so I know we're getting a little on time, but as we wrap up here, what are some of the practices that you have, that you either work with personally or that you coach some people through, that could help with, some of the things we talked about, so like grounding techniques, or
Absolutely.
I'm over fucking stimulated. I've got so much planning going on. My spirit, my emotional hygiene, and my brain is just bonkers right now. Like, how do I get grounded? How do I get disperse that? So yeah, it's maybe some of the practices that you either have or coach people with.
So the main practice I think I have with everyone is the practice of awareness. I know that sounds so basic, but it's catching it, noticing it, accepting it. Okay? So you always have to be like, this is happening, this is what's happening, I'm having this experience. At that point, then you listen to it. It's very basic, but you just listen to it. And try to listen curiously with kind of neutral attention, right? Like, what's this? And then listen. Don't make it something. Listen. And sometimes if it will give you all the information there, if that doesn't work, the most common one I do is just the access consciousness technique of, is this mine? Starting with that. Is this someone else's?
Yeah.
Right? And just listening that stillness there to see if it goes. Okay? That's kind of the washing it off after you've gone out in the public. For me, every day I set my field.
Yeah.
So I call it getting in shape, which is a bad joke, but I set geometry in my field so that I can remember what it feels like to be at my stable point. So that's kind of a practice I do with the power up.
Okay.
So I power up so that I can feel my stable, and then I think of it as the opposite of, I'm either receiving on my antenna or I'm transmitting on my antenna, right? And so I put myself into transmit mode, which is like a field of this, right? Here's my feeling I'm putting out to the world versus I'm having a full receive antenna out to the world.
Right.
So my practice usually is around returning to my transmit at the moment.
Nice.
There's almost,
Well, there's a lot of intentionality behind that, you know, and I think, you know, we talked about this, broached the subject earlier, but, you know, I've got clients that I work with, friends that I talk to a lot that, you know, question a lot of the world that I live in, and I embrace that question. Please, you know, let me make sure I understand what I'm trying to say too, right?
All of us.
And you know, one of the conversations I think it's pretty common that I've had is you know, do these rocks actually do things? These rocks that you keep in your
crystals.
pockets, do they do the things you say they do? Do they actually help out? Blah blah blah. And one of the conversations that I love having, especially with people that are either new into this kind of belief field or still understanding and exploring what their belief field is, it's more of an intention than an actual like magic, right? So let's say lapis lazuli, right? Lapis is one of my favorite stones. I wear it as rings. I have it on my pocket at times. And so let's say like this blue stone lapis, maybe I don't believe that it actually holds the qualities that it does, right? But because I'm choosing to keep that rock in my pocket now, every time I put my hand in my pocket, I'm going to think about how strong my voice needs to be when I teach.
Yes.
You know, how much space I can hold for others that are there for me.
Blue, shining back.
Right, you know, just like, so maybe it's not like this magic thing that now that I'm carrying this, I'm going to speak more clearly and with confidence and blah, blah, blah. But it's the intention of putting your hand in your pocket, feeling that, and being like, "That's right. I do have confidence in speech. I can get this point across. I can manifest and embody what I feel like this stone or this crystal or this sense of mind can embrace and it can embody, right?" And it's like, isn't that really what it all is? Is just that reminder that like, hey, you're fucking cool. You know, it doesn't take the rock to show you you're cool. But if it takes the rock to remind you how cool you are, then please take the fucking rock, right?
I think if people realized what I believe, which is life is pretty much like as you wish, right? So if you want to believe it, you'll continue wanting to believe it, right? That's one end. The other end is I have crystals all over my office.
Yeah.
And I have lots of kids come into the office, and I have lots of parents come into the office, and I don't care what they believe.
Right.
And I don't care that they don't believe. It's a rock, right? So if the kid comes up and I hand them a rock, and they hold the rock, and they're like, oh, I really like that one. And I don't care if they like it because it's shiny and makes them happy, or if they like it. I've got kids in there that will hold that rock and stop being afraid, right? Or they'll stop empathing the 6 people in the hallway and suddenly not feel that stuff and be like, wow, I feel better. Like, I feel grounded better easily. I don't care why.
Yeah, right, exactly.
That's not my business. I'm pretty sure that's $8. Go to the store, right? That's going to work a heck of a lot better than the Zoloft.
Right.
Right? So please, please, as you wish. Use the crystals. Don't use the crystals.
Yeah.
Maybe stay in your own car, though, and don't go telling everybody else that uses the crystals that there's some problem with them.
Right.
You don't know them.
Right.
You don't know how they feel with that. It's not your business. Yeah. So we could just be nice to each other and curious.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I don't understand why I need to feel like you need to believe what I believe and I need to believe what you believe. It's like...
What? Why?
Exactly.
Let's ask why.
We're so different. We're culturally different. We're raised differently. Everything about us is different besides the fact that we're just humans, you know? So, why do we... It's such a... I think of a lot of it as... Well, I'm just speculating, but I feel personally that it comes from a place of fear. You know, when that person doesn't show up the way that I do, fear of the unknown, fear of the oh my gosh, like the idea that, you know, one of the bases for religions in the early days was to say, like, okay, my cross looks like this, so if your cross looks like this, like my cross does, I at least know we have a good basic starting point of morals and values. But say your cross is a little bit lower than my cross, and I know that's different. So I was like, oh no, we don't have that. There's too much of a difference now because your little T is a little bit lower and my T is a little bit higher. Yeah. So you go fuck off, Protestant. I'm gonna take my Methodist ass over here, right? You know, and so it's like, why are we...
The ease of the labels.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the ease pattern that our brain likes to live in.
Of the labels, yeah.
Which is one of the reasons I think society is so volatile, if you will, is because... Again, opinion, but it's like our brain loves patterns, and we're moving into a place where these patterns don't really make sense anymore.
I hope they have to dissolve so we can see the bigger patterns.
Yes,
right?
Right. Oh, that's a great point. I haven't even thought of that. Yeah.
Because there is a whole body with a whole circulatory system that connects the liver to the brain in its own way. Yeah.
But does that body have to be labeled a certain gender because of what is or isn't between their legs, who they do or don't want to have sex with? You know, whether or not they can procreate by them, you know, gestate a baby, you know, all this shit. Like, why? Another podcast.
Many more.
You know,
perhaps
you know, but I think
as
just like you said, ask those questions. Like, it's like, why are we focused on this pattern when we haven't even seen this giant pattern that's like so obvious and waving a flag, saying, "Look at me, this is a cool pattern that maybe you'll have to unpack." But right now, you're focused on all this little bullshit, like why we don't look the same, why we don't dress the same, why it's
always feels bad.
Yeah.
Fear feels bad. Fear feels bad.
Yeah.
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 Don't do that.
Yeah.
Or do it and then be like, that feels bad.
Yeah. I didn't like that.
Or I don't want to be around people that make me feel bad. I would like to try something else. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, I love that we come up with more topics to talk about in our conversations. This is the best.
Where we got on emotional hygiene, I'm not really sure, but we got, honestly, emotional hygiene is kind of fear and love.
It is.
Right?
It is.
If you move into the bad feelings, then see if you can acknowledge them, appreciate that they're there, and then ask, you know, what else?
Yeah.
If I was curious about this, what could I do with it? How could I be with it?
Yep. And is this mine? I think is one of the best things.
Biggest ones ever for empaths. Yes.
Man, is this mine? Ask the questions. Be okay with feeling weird asking questions.
Just curious,
especially to
playful.
Yourself in the beginning. Yeah. It's okay to feel weird, but like lean into that because there is so much around you that's listening that you might not even realize is listening. And not in a bad, nefarious way, not in a like, hey, look at you weirdo talking to yourself, but in like, oh my God, they're finally talking to us.
Yes.
This is beautiful. Let's find a way to chat back.
All of the waters have always been here. Right? So all of your ancestors have touched that water.
Wow.
Yeah. So maybe it's because it's cool for bugs, or maybe it's because it holds the memories of all of the ancestors.
I'll go with the ancestors.
And the sky. Yeah.
Love that. Well, Dr. Wallace, thank you so much. Always love chatting with you.
Thank you.
Can't wait to have you back.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for spending time with Dr. Aubrey and I. Please check out the show notes for ways to get in touch with Dr. Aubrey, book a session with her, maybe start to learn a little bit more about the Power Up deck, which we've had conversations about in the past, and a little bit more on emotional hygiene. Obeisance love. We'll see you next time.